So today I welcome you all as we dive into the next experiment in Pam Grout's E². And this experiment is experiment number 8, the 101 Dalmatian Principle. You are connected to everything and everyone else in the universe. I am because we are. Tenet of the South African philosophy known as Ubuntu. Ubuntu, U-B-U-N-T-U. The premise. In this experiment, you'll prove that you are interconnected with everyone and everything through an invisible field of intelligence and energy. In quantum speak, this lattice of connections is known as non-locality. And even though it's one of the signature concepts of quantum mechanics, non-locality, along with its cousin, entanglement, has incited much head scratching over the last 300 years, starting with Sir Isaac Newton, who considered what he called action at a distance ludicrous, despite the fact that his own theory of gravity had proposed such a phenomenon. To be brief, non-locality is when two particles behave in synchronicity with no intermediary. But it doesn't make logical sense, right? If you want to move, say, an abandoned shoe in the middle of the floor, you have to touch the shoe or touch a broom that touches the shoe, or instruct your 5-year-old, the one who left it there, to pick it up via vibrations through the air to his ear. Things can only affect things that are in the immediate vicinity. There has to be a sequence, a chain of events. We believe that we can only alter things we can touch, but that is not the case. We've now gone on a demonstratable, more accurate model that proves that one object, without being anywhere near the second object, can influence the second object. Unfortunately, most of us still persist in hanging on to the old chain of events worldview, even though physicists have demonstrated time and time again that once an atom has been in the proximity of another atom, it will be influenced or entangled by that atom, no matter how far away it travels. Even Einstein couldn't bring himself to fully embrace this counterintuitive concept. An even weirder conundrum is that once the atoms have interacted, they are entangled forever. We have even proved that non-locality and entanglement work on bigger things like humans. In 1978, Dr. Jacobo Grinberg Zylberbaum of the National Autonomous University of Mexico, and it was later replicated by London neuropsychiatrist Peter Fenwick, hooked 2 test subjects to encephalographs in isolated rooms. The brainwave pattern produced by a series of strobe lights in one of the subject's eyes appeared identically in the test subject's EEG, even though he was nowhere near the same flashes. Through non-locality, though non-locality doesn't make sense to our Newtonian brains, we can still use it to our advantage. Like your computer that is hooked up via the internet to an infinite amount of information, you, by virtue of being human, are hooked up to everyone else in the world. Sometimes when I want to communicate to someone in another part of the world, I whisper my message to the giant oak tree in my front yard. Needless to say, trees, like the dogs in 101 Dalmatians, are interconnected, and the oak can easily send messages to a palm tree in my friend's yard in California through the concept of non-locality. In this experiment, you're going to use non-locality to send a message to someone from a distance, someone you will not see or talk to. That sinking feeling, S-Y-N-C-H-I-N-G. It is all about love and how we are all connected. Mark Wahlberg, American actor. When my daughter was in junior high school, she began answering every question with the same reply, 222. If someone asked her what time it was, she'd say 2:22, even when it was 5:43. If someone wondered how much it costs for a lunchroom carton of milk, again, she'd answer with $2.22. Her friends got a big kick out of it and started calling her at exactly 2:22 afternoon. She even started a Facebook fan page called The Amazing Awesomeness of 222. As I said, she was a junior in high school. That same summer, we took 2 trips. Both of these trips, with no input or planning on my part, we ended up staying in room 222 of our hotels, one in Seattle after we missed our connection to Juneau, and the other in London's Langham Hotel located across from the BBC headquarters. Carl Jung would call this synchronicity, the simultaneous occurrence of 2 meaningful but casually connected events. And some people call them coincidences. But in this experiment, you're going to permit yourself to suppose that synchronistic events are not the result of the law of averages or outright delusion, but rather valid products of non-locality and entanglement. In fact, in his book, Prometheus Rising, Robert Anton Wilson claims that even contemplating these issues usually triggers Jungian synchronicities. And if you have any great stories about synchronicity, Pam wants to know about them. So go to her website and tell her about them. Her website is www.pamgrout.com. Bell's now famous theorem that led to actual experiments that conclusively proved the non-locality of quantum nature of the world. Bell's theorem is highly technical, but in ordinary language, it amounts to this. There are no isolated systems, or I guess incidents. Every particle in the universe is an instantaneous, faster than light, communication with every other particle. The whole system, even the parts that are separated by cosmic distances, function as a whole system. After this experiment, you'll discover that synchronicity, a phenomenon people regularly shove off with a, wow, what a weird coincidence, is nothing but experiential proof of the interconnectedness of all things. Everything that doesn't look like love is smoke and mirrors. We can slice and dice it any way we like, but we cannot justify turning our faces away from this evidence. Larry Dossey, MD, American physician and author. In 1972, at an annual convention of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, a meteorologist named Edward Lorenz introduced a brand new term in the American vernacular. The butterfly effect was his observation that an event of seemingly insignificant as seemingly insignificant as the flapping of a butterfly's wing in Brazil, could set off a hurricane in Texas. The cool thing about this experiment is that you can use it to draw love into your life. You can use it to brighten the world. When you generate uplifting thoughts about someone, it contributes favorably to his or her energy. Conversely, when you judge others, even if you keep it to yourself, you affect their energy and weigh down the quality of your interactions. You can literally uplift the world by your lasering love, blessings, peace, and other high frequency emotions to people in your life. As it says in the Course in Miracles, you are being blessed by every beneficent thought of any of your brothers anywhere. So this kind of makes us think about what's happening in our world events now, and perhaps instead of focusing on the negative aspects and the distressing parts, think of the resiliency of human beings and their capability to rise above, right? So let's focus on that. Anecdotal evidence. All we want, whether we're honeybees, ponderosa pines, coyotes, human beings, or stars, is to love and be loved, to be accepted, cherished, and celebrated simply for being who we are. Is that so very difficult? Derek Jensen, American author and environmental activist. My friend, who I'll call Ginger, because that's not her name, had a rocky relationship with her mother for years. Finally, she decided that every night before falling asleep, she would send her mom blessings. Her mom, of course, had no idea she was doing this. To this day, Ginger has never told her mom that for 6 months, she spent a few minutes each evening envisioning her getting all the things she ever wanted and seeing herself happy about it. I honestly don't know how it happened, but our relationship changed, and now we're the best of friends. More anecdotal evidence. Explore your own higher latitudes. Be a Columbus to the whole new continents within you, opening new channels, not of trade, but of thought. Henry David Thoreau, American writer and philosopher. Best-selling author Martha Beck was once like most of us, friendly enough, trusting enough, but not about to go overboard. After all, she was a scientist, a Harvard pedigreed sociologist who needed facts to form any kind of conclusion. And the conclusion she came to, the same one most of all of us have on the planet Earth, is that people are okay, but you don't want to get too involved, especially not if you're at Harvard and trying to get your second graduate degree. Probably best to keep everybody at arm's length. And as she describes in her wonderful book, Expecting Adam, we go around like Queen Elizabeth, bless her heart, clutching our dowdy little accessories, avoiding the slightest hint of impropriety, never showing our real feelings or touching anyone else except through glove leather. So Martha Beck was pulled a fast one by life. It gave her a son with Down syndrome, Adam, who taught her that everything she thought she understood about the world was a big ruse, especially the part about not trusting other people. When she was pregnant with Adam, her husband, also a Harvard graduate student, traveled a lot to Asia. And she was left at home to cope with her demanding studies, her 2-year-old, and a pregnancy that was not going well. Fires, potential miscarriages, and ongoing pregnancy ailments drove her to wit's end. And as she says, I felt like a load of gravel had been dumped on me. Every time she was about to snap, an angel, and I don't mean metaphorically, or an acquaintance she barely knew would show up with kind words, groceries, or some other form of assistance. Keep in mind, this is a woman who had to be on the edge of desperation for anything this woo-woo to get through, for this woo-woo to get through. She had long eschewed any notion that of God and was sworn by education to follow the good old Baconian logic of refusing to believe anything until it was proven true. Nonetheless, a woman she barely knew showed up on her doorstep with groceries one morning when she was about to pass out. An unforeseen force appeared out of nowhere to guide her and her daughter through a smoke-filled apartment before it burned to the ground. She was able to see and talk to her husband, even though he was in Hong Kong and she was in Boston. And no, I don't mean by telephone. And what she came to realize is, against all odds, this is a quote, despite everything that works against it despite everything that works against it on this unpleasant, uncomfortable planet, mothering is here in abundance. You can always find it if you're smart enough and know where to look, end quote. Even if you're not smart enough, it's all around us. So the method, what are we going to do? What now appear as paradoxes of quantum theory will seem just as common sense to our children's children. Stephen Hawking, British theoretical physicist. In this experiment, you're going to send a message to someone you know using the concept of non-locality. According to Laura Day, author of Practical Intuition, it's as easy as sending an email. You don't have to leave your chair. We're connected to a great big data bank. We're constantly exchanging information anyway. Forget therapy. You can have all kinds of cash by simply changing the dialogue in your own mind. But be careful what you ask for. Sandra Ray, co-founder of Loving Relationship Training and a former teacher of mine, tells a funny story about communicating through the unseen data bank. She went to Leonard Orr, another one of my teachers, to find out why she kept wrecking her car. He told her to make a different intention in the form of an affirmation. She scoffed and said, "You mean to tell me that with nothing but an intention, I could get men to call me on the telephone?" "Of course," he said, "try it." She began sending out an intention to the FP. Now, I receive an abundant inflow of calls from men. Within 4 days, every single one of her old lovers called, some whom she hadn't seen in months, some for years. Incredible as it sounds, I began to receive calls during the night, wrong numbers from men I didn't even know. Needless to say, she changed the intention. So here are the steps. Choose your target. While it's certainly possible to send a message to practically anyone, I suggest choosing someone you've already met. Bruce Rosenblum, professor of physics in the University of California, Santa Cruz, claims that once you've met someone and shaken that person's hand, you are forever entangled. Choose what kind of action or response you want. The more specific you can get, the better. Be very clear about your agenda. For my most recent experiment, I send a message to my partner. Bring home a loaf of bread. Place your target in front of your mind's eye. Be with your target by embodying and experiencing your connection. Words are often an ineffective way to get a message across. Engage all your senses and believe in your message. To make it more effective and to add a little fun, shower your target with good thoughts. Send them incomparable blessings. Think about them winning the lottery, getting a date with Channing Tatum, winning a trip around the world. So here is our lab report, and you can download that from the link up. You'll see in the notes here. The principle, 101 Dalmatians Principle, the theory. You're connected to everything and everyone else in the universe. The question, can I send a message to someone without being in that person's presence? The hypothesis, if during the next 2 days I telepathically send a specific message to a specific person, I will get evidence that he or she received it. Time required, 48 hours. The approach. Okay, FP, I'm hearing the melody from the Twilight Zone playing in the background, but I am willing to suspend judgment just this once to see if this might be one of those mysterious aspects of quantum physics. What say you? You write in today's date and the time that you are asking. So you want to, in your research notes, put a note down what you're asking and what the response is in 48 hours, how you feel when you're doing it. Just really get into this. That is the bottom. Oh, that is at bottom the only courage that is demanded of us, to have courage for the most strange, the most singular, and the most inexplicable that we may encounter. That is said by Rainer Maria Rilke, Bohemian Austrian poet. And this has me also thinking, expect the unexpected, expect what you want. Our minds want to stay in the familiar, but gosh, the familiar is what got you where you are now. And if you want anything different, think outside the box, right? So you guys, this has been awesome. I'm going to let you go. Let me know how this goes. I have some ideas about what I'm going to be focusing on. So you guys have some inklings too? Great. So I'll see you next time. Happy weekend. Happy manifesting. Happy creating what you want in life. And I will see you Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Facebook Live. See you next time.